Hello, I go by Larbird33 on Reddit, Twitter, and Instagram. So this is episode 8 of the Strangers Celtic podcast. Last one I did was right before the trade deadline. It's pretty fun. I think I brought on 12 different NBA fans, including some fans of some rival teams. It's pretty cool to get some perspectives from some different fan bases. I took a little break from doing episodes during the All-Star break and kind of, a little bit during this overblown, toxic Kyrie Irving hate. But earlier this week, I did do a pretty lengthy deep dive into Kyrie's public interviews and showed how those quotes have been consistently taken out of context to create this kind of clickbait drama narrative. So I do recommend checking that out if you haven't seen it. Still having fun putting out some NBA content. Do me a solid and subscribe to my channel if you're enjoying my stuff. Yeah, I saw that Kyle Draper recently was talking about the Awaken 180 weight loss challenge, and it inspired me. I think I could lose a couple extra pounds myself, so I'll tell you what, if you guys will have me, I plan on losing a pound for every new subscriber that I get to this channel. We'll see how that goes. So look, we have the Lakers game later tonight. Had a lot of positive comments about the Laker fan that I brought on during that multi-guest pod. He goes by the name of Yes Trask on Twitter and Instagram. He's the lead singer of the band Niantic. So look, I'm actually re-recording this intro after finishing our conversation because literally 5 minutes after we got off the phone, I got a text from him about this Brandon Ingram news. Listen, as a fan of the NBA, this sucks. Regardless of the Celtic-Laker rivalry, I love watching young players blossom in this league, and anytime a serious medical condition like this pops up, I just feel bad for the player. He was reportedly out for the season with a blood clot issue, and early stuff I'm reading is comparing this to the Chris Bosh situation. So it's a shitty thing. There's of course going to be a lot of talk about how this impacts how this summer plays out, but like right now, let's just hope that this dude makes a full recovery, gets back on the court as soon as possible. You'll hear in this podcast, Ingram's name comes up. I mean, we talk about, how optimistic both of us are about his potential. Even, me as a Celtic fan, I have to acknowledge that his ceiling is really high. So this sucks, it's shitty news. But nonetheless, we cover a lot of topics here. So here's my conversation with Trask about the Lakers and Celtics.
Hey, man.
What's up, man? How you doing?
Good.
This is Trask. Trask is a super fan of the Los Angeles Lakers. I had you on for a brief kind of like 5-minute segment on my last podcast prior to the trade deadline, and a lot of people commented they really liked you on. They wanted to hear more from you, so I'm bringing you back on right now.
Thanks, bro. Thanks. Thanks, man. Greetings from downtown LA. It's a frigid 56 degrees.
Yeah, right. Tell the folks a little bit about yourself. What do you want to tell them?
I have a rock band called Niantic. We're based out of LA. We're in the studio right now making our 5th EP, and we'll do a West Coast tour later this year. I got to figure that out. I am a born and raised fan of the Lakers, so I'm always happy to party with you, dude.
Are you going to make your way up to Seattle?
We are. No, it looks like that's going to be the end game, or maybe where we start. We usually, when we do those kind of tours, usually we start like in Seattle, so.
Awesome.
That looks like that's going to happen.
Yeah, so I live up there. Full transparency for anyone listening here. I've met Trask once before. You actually went to school with my wife way back in the day. What was my wife like back then?
Yeah, because I just had a blast. Just talking shit and being really just kind of like fun and acerbic and just having a blast generally. It was awesome.
Right on. The funny thing about your band's name is actually the same name as the company that makes Pokemon Go. How's that been for you?
Yeah, we came first, and I mean it's not like they violated our trademark. No, we came first. We do occasionally get weird Facebook messages on our Facebook page in the middle of the night in Portuguese because it's very, very popular, not just here in the U.S. but also in Brazil. I think we've all learned a couple of words of Portuguese and having to be like, sorry, we're not the video game company. We're a rock band from L.A. We can't help you. We can't help you with your technical issue that you're having with the mapping software or whatever.
Where does the name come from? What is Niantic, anyways?
Niantic was an Indian tribe. They were part of the Algonquins, I believe,
Gotcha.
out of Connecticut.
All right. All right. Fair enough. So yeah, man. So the Lakers, man. Both of our seasons, from both the Celtics and Lakers standpoints, have not gone as expected. We're playing.
Everything's just the way we all drew it up. Lakers, Celtics, NBA
Right.
Finals. Just like we predicted.
We're playing later tonight, and obviously we're both kind of limping into this game a little bit. So tell me, like, how has year one of the LeBron experience gone for you guys from your perspective?
I believe that when LeBron signs on to roller coaster and rocket ship your team into automatic title contention, I remember something about not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, and at the end of that first year when he was at the Heat, I'll never forget that great meme where he's just like, we're going for 1 championship. When things were rolling in December, when Zoe was healthy, Kuzma was having a hot month as well, and Braun himself was in the zone. You could see that he was holding back some energy, but he and Zoe were running the show, I think, pretty admirably. This is back in December. The Lakers were the 4 seed. We were starting to talk to ourselves, okay, well, we're not going to beat the Warriors probably, but the blueprint of, let's take a different risk, let's go in this weird direction with these weird playmakers and big names that, are really rangy and tough defenders. Okay, well, we're the 4 seed, and the results are bearing fruit, and we have really, really, really great defense, and the next move on that would have been, you have to sustain that development. And if you make a trade, then you make a trade. You hope for the best. Do
you feel like so obviously he got injured in late December, and that he was out for about a
Christmas
month.
Day, yeah.
For about a month. So
it was about 6 weeks, and it was on Christmas Day, yeah.
One thing I wanted to do is just, I'm a Celtic fan. Obviously, I don't pay too close attention to the Lakers. I want to do this where I kind of give you my take.
I pay attention to you guys, but so I don't know what that's about. Know your enemy.
I'll give you my ignorant take on it. You can kind of clear up my misperceptions, and then maybe we'll do it in reverse.
Sure, I'll check your math.
You can give me your take on the Celtics. But so my take on it was just that, like, that roster never really made any sense to me. You guys signed a bunch of guys that weren't really shooters around a guy that kind of needs shooters. I feel like you guys have a big 3 right now of, as much as you can call it a big 3, but your 3 key guys have been LeBron, Kuzma, and Ingram. I think Kuzma, he's averaging like 19 points, shooting about 46%, 31% from 3. I want to hear your take on him, but like this guy, I've seen Laker fans, they think maybe he's like the next Rashard Lewis. I watched Rashard a bunch of, back in the day when I lived in Seattle.
Sure,
and I feel like Rashard was probably a better 3-point shooter. That guy he shot like 38% from 3 back in the day. I don't know about Kuzma. I wouldn't be surprised if Kuzma ends up being, really good down the line, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he ends up like a player like Channing Frye, who ends up averaging like 12, 13 points for his next team. I'm a little higher on Brandon Ingram. I feel like that guy, he's 21 years old. I know he hasn't...
Brandon Ingram is an all-star.
I have a lot of faith that guy is going to be good down the line for you guys. I mean, he's
good now.
He's good now, for sure. He's averaging 18 points, 50% shooting, and he's 21.
I think someone on Laker Phone just said a thing where I think his per 36 is sneaky close to Jayson Tatum.
Yeah, I mean, the difference there is that Boston has just they have so many different guys right now that are all trying to vie for shots and opportunities, whereas I feel like you guys have kind of settled on your 3 dudes. So, like, Ingram takes 14 shots.
There's a pecking order, yeah.
Yeah, Kuzma takes his 15 shots. And I don't know how those guys would do on another team. I mean, I do feel like those are your 3 guys, but overall, it never really made a lot of sense to me. The way that roster was constructed. What I'm curious from you is, do you feel like, between obviously LeBron got injured, but how much do you feel like the Anthony Davis trade stuff has impacted your team and like their motivation? Do you feel like it's that? Do you feel like it's LeBron's defense that slipped? Like, what do you think has been the main culprit for you guys kind of falling on your face a little bit?
A little bit. The expectations here, like I said, we didn't think we're getting to the finals or we're getting to the conference finals. But the expectations here, we're making the playoffs. We'll take our chances then because we have the ultimate weapon. But so a little bit of falling on your face is what the Celtics and the Lakers have turned it into a very bruised and bloody situation. My number one thing is that Lonzo Ball is injured.
Okay.
Before we get into the Anthony Davis thing, Lonzo Ball is injured. So all of a sudden, one of the best defensive guards in the league, full stop, is not playing. I mean, that guy, none of us expected him to be the defender that he is. It's like how when Russell Westbrook came into the league, none of us expected him to be the offensive force that he is. He was projected to be like this really intense, physical defensive guard and not be, this guy who's going to average a triple-double for 3 straight seasons, which was I thought we'd walk on the moon before someone came close to doing what Oscar Robertson did.
Mm-hmm.
With him being injured, he can't quarterback not just the offense, in a lot of ways being the other playmaker that LeBron's really never had, but also quarterbacking so much of the defense and getting guys to their spots on D in a way that LeBron doesn't necessarily need to be engaged to do. And without that, it just kind of changes the whole cohesion. It puts Rondo in a tricky spot and exposes Rondo on defense. There's just so many, second consequences from that.
Sure.
Furthermore, with the trade rumors, some guys respond differently to that, and we've seen that. Kuzma, I think, kind of has that Kobe thing in his head where he's just, I don't care, whatever happens, I'm just going to go ball, and he's very confident about that. Ingram is a little more cerebral, and Ingram since the break has gotten even better.
Yep.
And like I was saying before, his per 36 is just killing it, and I love how he's developing. And everyone is just scared shitless that he's not going to be a good player, but he's very clearly a very good player with a higher ceiling than he's currently reaching. And that really, and the Rashard Lewis comparison for Kuzma is good, but for Ingram, like, I still don't see him like reaching like the full KD.
Yeah, right.
But
I'm definitely higher on Ingram than a lot of my fellow Celtics fans. I think a lot of people are out on him, but I mean, it's kind of silly. I mean, he's 21 years old. His last month, I'm looking at it right now. February, he shot 50%. He shot 39% from three. I mean, he's getting it done statistically, and he's 21. He's 21 years old. 3, 4, 5 years from now, who knows how good that guy can be? So.
Oh yeah, not everyone has the Kevin Durant skill set. Out of the box. We're from the jump. We're like, oh wow, this KD kid, man. But with Ingram, like the Lakers are not stupid. The fans of the Lakers are not stupid. We love Jayson Tatum. That guy's got a great game. And it didn't hurt that his first phone call was to Mama. Like I want to improve my mental approach to the game, so I'm going to call the person who's probably the sharpest edged mental person ever to play.
Right.
Who happens to live in Newport Beach.
A lot of Celtics fans are still they're still so pissed about him calling Kobe, but the thing is, like, Kobe's been a mentor to, Isaiah Thomas during his MVP season. He was, Kyrie Irving considers Kobe a mentor. It's I mean, I'm okay with these guys calling Kobe. I don't think that Jayson Tatum's season has struggled in any way because of Kobe Bryant. A lot of people complain about Tatum's taking long twos this season. His last few games, he's actually been pretty decent from long twos. I feel like that's just part of his game, his development. He should actually add that part.
Is he capable of doing the LaMarcus Aldridge thing where you can just get away from taking these 17-footers that anyone else that would be pulled immediately?
Right, and I talked about this a little probably a couple months ago or something on my podcast, but the players like Kevin Durant and Dirk, these kind of longer, taller players, probably Ingram as well.
Yes.
They thrive in that long two area because they have so much size and length that they can shoot over anyone. That's part of Tatum's game he needs to develop. So I never really cared if he was taking long twos. He just needs to develop them. I don't mind him taking them. He just needs to make them,
And I think everyone from Daryl Morey on down would tell you that it's inefficient for most players to take that shot. But if you have a certain skill set or a certain size or a certain shooting disposition, taking that shot can be really efficient because everyone's expecting you to either drive to the basket or step out. But if you can knock down a 17-footer in that situation,
right,
and that's a tradition that goes back to Larry Bird.
Right. It's true.
We talk about Larry being a dead-eye shooter, which he was, but it was really a lot of it had to do with him having a really solid mid-range game that kind of opened things up for him.
Yep, I agree. So yeah, Lonzo Ball. I think that's a key one. You're right about him. He has missed a lot of games.
Oh, yeah.
And he's obviously a polarizing character because of his shooting and everything. But I think I was listening to Bill Simmons recently. He said he still believes Lonzo Ball has a really bright future. I kind of agree with him on this as well. I think that guy's gonna be really good down the line. So he's a key part of what you guys are missing.
Lots of great players in mid-streak. Lots of great players in mid-streak shooters. If you're a streaky shooter on the Minnesota Timberwolves, no one notices.
It's true. If you're on the Lakers, they're definitely
bright lights, dude. Bright lights.
So is Rajon Rondo, is he a double agent still working for the Celtics, torpedoing your season, or has he been actually a pretty good player this year from your perspective?
I don't know. Why don't you ask the 18,000 fans who he put a dagger into the garden that one night a month or so ago? How double agent he is.
That hurt.
Also, we weren't pissed at him before, when he bricked that 3-pointer in the final minute of Game 7. Yeah, was he a double agent then for us?
Oh, man, killing me. That's the funny thing about Rondo is that A lot of Celtics fans are like, they still love Rondo, and I actually saw this really weird comment where someone said, it was a Celtic fan that said this, somehow I feel like I love Rondo more now that he's on the Lakers than when he was on the Celtics. I thought that was such a strange comment. But the interesting thing about his career is I remember when he, in his final season on the Celtics, all the buzz at the time was that Rondo and Kobe were close, and that he was going to probably stab Boston in the back, and he was going to sign with them in free agency. And as soon as that rumor hit, Ainge was like, all right, I'm going to send you to Dallas. People forget about that. Like, if he had done that, I feel like Celtics fans would look at him completely differently. But his career, because he went to Dallas and he moved around a little bit, now he's on the Lakers, and people are like, it's all right. He's towards the tail end of his career. It's no big deal.
I've always loved his game, especially like if you go back to the glory days. You have him and Derek Fisher as like this all-time chess game matchup. Yeah, and then when he did have that kind of crazy thing where everyone thought, yeah, he's going to team up with Kobe because Kobe couldn't get Chris Paul. So who's the next stagey point guard you could put next to Kobe? But his game, like at this point, he's really good off the bench, but because he's a negative defensive player,
right?
It puts him in a really awkward spot to have to do all the stuff that he's doing in the first unit as a starter. Like, it's almost not fair to him. And it changes the energy completely. And then you have, guys like Alex Caruso, who it turns out can ball and, is a killer player, coming through, in the second unit, but who should really only be out for garbage time.
Right.
Given where he is developmentally.
What was the explanation for him sitting on the court side? I know that was a little bit of a slight drama that they made in the media. What was the real story behind that?
I don't say fake news very often, but no, I think my understanding of it was that he kind of just was in his head and he was frustrated and he was sitting there, and I don't know if he didn't realize or didn't care, like that he wasn't supposed to sit there or whatever.
Right.
And he just kind of like needed some space for a minute. The thing about this is that you see this with when he was on the Bulls and when he was on the Pelicans. The kids love this guy. Oh, and the Kings too. Yep. The kids love this guy. He's a mentor to the kids. He's always working with the rookies, with the sophomores, with the new guys, and trying to help them get up to speed and understand like the big picture, not just the game, but just the politics, the off the court stuff, everything. Mm-hmm. So it's not being a bad influence to anybody by doing this. And I think his teammates understood it. And really, the picture looks like it's the picture of Kuzma, shoving LeBron into a better defensive position. That happens hundreds of times, every day.
Right.
But the cameras were rolling, and so the optics aren't good.
Sure.
If this was the Minnesota Timberwolves, no one's talking about it.
I mean, this has been happening all season with us as well. I mean, I've been on like a rampage on this within the Celtic community because our fans are actually starting to turn on our team because of some of the media kind of drama that's been. It's just clickbait nonsense, but they'll take tiny little details that happen and make it into this like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So a recent one, for example, you probably saw it. There was a bunch of stuff about how Jaylen Brown said the Celtics were toxic and they have a toxic locker room. He never even said that. He said that losing's toxic. It sucks. But they just twisted it into him saying that the locker room was toxic. And Kyrie Irving all season has had tiny little quotes where he talks about the team needing to work together, and they'll take it into...
Gone.
He's gone. All right. Well, that brings me to the next question. So I gave you my perspective on the Lakers. What is your perspective as a Laker fan on the Celtic season and why you think we've struggled?
I'm obviously following this pretty closely, as I am a big believer in know your enemy. Not a lot of Celtic games, but if I'm going to watch a team who isn't the Lakers or Milwaukee, I'm probably watching Warriors, Celtics, Sixers. Just staying up on what's going on. Kind of been really intrigued by the Heat the last couple of years. I really think they do some cool stuff.
Sure.
Especially on defense. It's always really fun to watch Spoelstra kind of puzzle that out. With the Celtics, I'm surprised that Brad Stevens hasn't been able to exhibit a kind of, the Doc Rivers leader of men, Phil Jackson, Zen Master level of buy-in. I'm surprised, and I think he's kind of naive for not being able to do that. Now, honestly, we're not in the locker room, and I bet the locker room is probably, it's not, the Charlotte Bobcats locker room. Like, I'm sure that on most of the time, those guys are all fine. But asset accumulation and being talked about as a pawn or as assets for a potential trade for a certain disgruntled young forward who plays in the state of Louisiana.
Yeah.
And sometimes some guys don't respond to it well. I think Zoe wouldn't respond to it well. I think Josh Hart maybe doesn't, even though I really like their game.
Right.
I think Ingram did kind of as a fuck you. It was like, no, I'm a fucking great player, and if you're going to trade me, this is what you're missing. And I think there's probably guys like that in the Celtics locker room where also some guys respond well and some guys don't.
Mm-hmm, sure.
I haven't looked closely at Jayson Tatum's stats or his per 36 other than just for a second. My thought is that they needed to probably trade either Terry or Jalen or somebody for some reason. If for no other reason than there's just, you can't play 12 deep on a playoff team.
Right.
And it worked last year because you had next man up, and that was cool.
Yep.
But and Jayson Tatum especially, I thought really stepped up really marvelously.
I think what you said is pretty valid. That's pretty much my take on this team. I've been saying this now for a couple of months. Is that so? Boston is a weird position because they have 9 guys who all have kind of a claim that they should be starters. 9 guys on that team that have all started. They've all started a season. Like Aaron Baines is probably the 9th man if you look at like pure talent. And Baines was our starter during last year. He was our starter during the playoffs last year.
Yeah, because you guys had Horford play the 4, right? Yeah.
Right. So Rozier, another guy, he was huge for our playoffs last season. Obviously Hayward.
Yeah, and he's going to look really good in orange when he's on Phoenix.
Which is very possible. But yeah, the problem is that we have 9. We have 9 guys who are all starter level players, and then I've been hearing stuff all season, even before the AD stuff really broke, about how Rozier's been uncomfortable in his bench role. Jaylen Brown wasn't comfortable in his bench role, and they really don't have a clear hierarchy. And unlike you guys, who you have your 3 dudes who are going to shoot most of your shots on any given night, it might be Tatum taking the shots, it might be Marcus Morris, it might be Marcus Smart, it might be Terry Rozier. Like our team just doesn't have that pecking order that they kind of need.
And they're too young and are too naively coached to be able to pull off what the Warriors do. Or last night, Clay had 39 points.
Right.
Tomorrow night, it'll be KD with 39 points. The night after that, it'll be Steph. Hell, it could be DeMarcus is just playing, 15 or 20 points a night and pulling down, 10 and 6 assists.
Sure.
So he stepped his game back. But these guys are all, since they're all all-stars, they're all professionals, they're all superstars.
Right. But again, that comes down to kind of, I hate to criticize Brad. I love Brad Stevens, but I've been pointing that out too. If you look at the Golden State Warriors, they have their 3 guys. All 3 of those guys will take anywhere on average 19 to 20 shots per game. And then I looked at our team, and Kyrie Irving, who is clearly the most effective offensive option they have, was taking 18 shots per game. He's taking less shots
in the entire Eastern Conference.
Yeah, and he's taking 18 shots per game. It's just crazy to me that Kyrie was taking less shots per game than Golden State's 3rd option. It just doesn't make any sense. It's like their whole balance is off. No. They kind of need to consolidate. So it's been a struggle.
It's a naivete thing, and it stems from. And I think Brad Stevens is a very good coach. I'm not gonna piss on your leg and tell you it's raining. Like, he's a great coach. But he's naive about the way that this is supposed to work, and I think some of it stems probably from his college background, which is unfortunate, but also kind of those are the facts on the ground. When you're a college coach, you can do that. When you're a college coach, you can do this stuff.
And he's used to actually having a bunch of guys who are, not necessarily great, and then having them overachieve. And this is his first season where he does have star caliber player in Kyrie, and I still believe that Tatum is that next guy.
Oh, sure.
And having Tatum take, on our team, as he's clearly the 2nd option, having him take 13 shots per game, where you guys have Kuzma taking 15 and you have Ingram taking 14, like Tatum should be taking somewhere in the range of 15 to 17 shots per game, but we don't have those shot opportunities for him because we have Morris, we have Smart, we have Rozier, all these other guys who think that they're starters, star caliber players who want to take these shots. So it's been
wait. Maybe Brad Stevens isn't as good of a coach as we think he is. He's letting Marcus Smart shoot the ball.
He is now. Actually, I gotta give credit to Marcus Smart because
put a guy like that out there.
I do have to give credit to Marcus Smart because this is his first season ever where he shot above 40%.
I always do love tackling every time he tries a 3 because And if you do hear a cackle sometime coming from down south, it's me cackling.
Well, be careful, though, because Marcus Smart this year is shooting 36% from three. He's never done this ever before, but that's pretty decent. It's just came out of nowhere. He finally has a decent shot this season, but still, he shouldn't be the one taking shots for this team. I've never gone on a date
with Margot Robbie before, but it'll happen someday, right?
Right. Well, let's transition. I don't want to take up too much of your time. How much time do you have left, by the way?
I got about 5-10 minutes.
Okay. So Anthony Davis, the last time I did a podcast was right before the trade deadline.
Oh, boy.
And I had said at the time that I did not believe that he was purely Los Angeles Lakers or bust. Just based on, to me, it seemed very clear to me that Rich Paul and his entire team was just trying to get him out of New Orleans as quickly as possible. And because LA was the only viable option at the time, it became LA or bust. So my take before the trade deadline was that I said, as soon as we get past this trade deadline, you're going to see that Davis is going to suddenly have Boston on his list. And that's exactly what happened. People didn't buy it. They were like, oh, no, he's just saying that to backtrack. I actually buy it. I think that he does have Boston as one of the teams he'd be comfortable going with. What's your take on it?
It's really cold in Boston. and the fans are mean. And if I were, a 7-foot basketball player who is probably, a top 5 player in the world, a future Hall of Famer, and has, a really big unibrow, I probably wouldn't want to play there.
Fair enough. So, I mean, go ahead, keep going.
I look at it like this. Rich Paul knows what he's doing. He and LeBron and Maverick Carter and those guys have put together an MO and a mission statement of fully recognizing how much power they have. They have this whole, really epic social agenda. They have a whole vision of young black millionaires and billionaires who get shit done and kind of remake the world in their image. And Anthony Davis is like the next front for that. When Rich Paul said he only wants to play in LA, he doesn't want to play in Boston. And if he does go to Boston, he will leave Boston and sign with the Lakers, which would just be the coup of the century.
Yeah.
Oh, God. That would just be a stake in the heart. People in LA would tell their grandkids about that.
I have no belief that Ainge would trade for him if he actually thought that he would do that. So I get your point. I think that there's a lot of reasons that anyone would want to play in LA and live in LA. That's a no-brainer.
And now with Rich Paul, Maverick Carter running the show,
sure,
and asserting their power, it's very Game of Thrones. It's very cool to watch. I don't always love everything they ever do, but those guys are smart and they're playing the game and they're playing to win. I didn't think this before, but probably about 6 months to 8 months before LeBron signed with LA, I just kind of was like, he's coming here. Because it's what every sane person would have done. And now I kind of think Kyrie goes to New York.
You think Kyrie goes to New York? Okay. Well, all right.
I think Kyrie and KD both go to New York. And I think it's going to be weird for them. It's going to make New Yorkers happy. And it probably doesn't win a title unless they can also get Anthony Davis because they can draft Zion Williamson or something like that. But I think Anthony Davis still ends up here. I hope we can keep Brandon Ingram when that happens. Or we can trade Brandon Ingram for Bradley Beal. That would be cool.
Right.
But I think Davis comes here. He's either going here or he's coming to Boston. He's not going anywhere else.
I agree with you on that. I do agree with you on that. And it's really going to come down to the offers that the Lakers and the Celtics are willing to make with the kind of secure...
Well, the Celtics have the better offer unless Kyrie Irving leaves, which I think he's going to.
And they're probably not going to make that offer if they genuinely think that Davis is going to leave. It's really going to come down to whether they're going to have to sit down with Kyrie Irving and they're going to have to talk to him about what he wants from his future and what he wants for teammates. And then part of that discussion will be probably, Kyrie calling up Davis to get some little intel for the Celtics on whether or not he's going to stay. I mean, all this stuff, obviously, they don't officially come out and say that they're talking through these channels, but they're going to find out whether Davis is interested in staying. My whole thing is that, here's my take from a Celtic perspective. Obviously, I'm a little bit of a homer because I'm a Celtic fan, but from the way I've always looked at Davis, I don't think that he's necessarily the kind of guy that wants to be, the face of this huge, media empire in LA or be in movies or anything like that. To me, it's really just been about he's playing on a really shitty team. He's getting no attention there. The Pelicans are at the bottom of the league and interest across the board. Like, they don't even sell out their arena. And his whole thing, he just wants to win. He wants to be relevant. So the Celtics, obviously, they have a solid foundation. If Kyrie stays, they have a pretty solid supporting cast. Their ownership group is great. Their management is pretty solid. A coaching staff, despite we just talked about. The Celtics. The Celtics.
Oh, the Celtics.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and you've got what's his name, who's your number 2 guy under Danny, who is going to probably end up being the GM of the Pelicans. And then we have a saying out here, it's Mueller time, because that shit's fucked up. That fucked up.
That'll be interesting.
That's what's going to happen.
You're talking about Mike Zarin, I think his name is. But
Jeannie Buss would light her hair on fire if that shit went down like I said.
Well, it would be very much reminiscent of when KG had said that.
She would literally call Mueller.
This would be just like a decade ago when KG said that he only wanted to go to Lakers and refused to come to Boston. And what do you know? He ends up in Boston and signs an extension. But, I think people discount Boston, despite the poor weather and the fans being mean. Like,
I don't discount Boston ever.
Yeah.
I personally had my heart ripped out. I know to never discount the Boston Celtics.
The weird thing about that is, though, a lot of people seem to look at them as like a small market team. Like, oh, they're not as big as New York. They're not as big as Boston. Or they're not as big as LA. From a pure NBA standpoint, like they were, I think.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, the Celtics are crazy. It doesn't matter. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you look across like anything. So like, you can look at things like how many fans they have on Facebook or Twitter. They're in top 5. You can look at like how many in valuation. They're 5th in the league. In merchandise sales, they were they're fourth. They were 4th in the league. Like Kyrie Irving now is like the 6th biggest in the league in terms of endorsements. Of course, that has a lot to do with his, being movies and stuff.
Maybe it's because I'm a Laker fan, but I never have to bring this stuff up. 1, 2. I know all this already. Oh yeah,
sure.
The Celtics are a juggernaut, and they always are, and they always will be.
It'll be interesting.
And you can never underestimate them.
It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. We'll see where this goes.
It's gonna be fun. The soap opera never stops.
I have to answer this quick question because this is a fan. Well, he's a guy who actually listens to my podcast, and he asked this question, so I'm going to answer it for him. Sure. He says, what are the ramifications for the Boston Celtics if they were to lose early in the playoffs? Because it seems that there's a very good chance Kyrie could leave, depending on how the season plays out. Gordon Hayward being a shell of his former self may be enough reason for Kyrie to leave. That was his question. So just to answer him, I want to hear your perspective on it too, but to answer his question, I think if the Celtics lose early, that just seems to me that Ainge is going to be even more aggressive in building a team around Kyrie. That probably means going after Davis even harder. And this seems ridiculous, but I've heard Brian Windhorst and Jackie Mack talk about that. The idea
gets injured.
If he gets injured, well, then we're in a totally different scenario. But this is something that Jackie Mack has talked about, and this seems ridiculous. But Windhorst had it just even recently. He talked about this. The idea of Kevin Durant coming to Boston is not that outlandish if they work a sign and trade. It's possible. I know you said that Durant's going to go to New York with Kyrie. There's a chance there that Kyrie's going to convince
one of
Durant.
those guys is going to New York.
It could happen, but there's also a chance that Durant would at least entertain the idea of coming to the Celtics. He had the Celtics number 2 on his list.
You'd have to give up one of Hayward and Horford, probably Marcus Smart, and possibly Tatum to make the math work.
Absolutely.
And that's before you factor in whether or not you could try and get Anthony Davis.
This is absolutely true, but they would potentially have to gut their entire roster because in order to do a sign and trade, they have to stay under the salary cap apron. But
yeah,
my answer to the Daily News is the guy's name who asked this question. They're going to go, if they do lose early in the playoffs, it doesn't necessarily mean that Kyrie's immediately out the door, because it just might mean that Kyrie and Ainge are going to sit down and say, what do you want from this team? Do you want us to go all in on Davis? Do you want us to go in on Durant?
Early in the playoffs, he's gone, man.
All right, well, I'm being naive and
if you're gonna lose early in the playoffs, you're better off doing it in New York. Everyone expects it in New York.
Well, the other interesting thing is if Kyrie actually does leave, then it really comes down to what Horford wants to do. So Bill Simmons recently said that Horford could potentially opt out. Horford has his final year of his contracts coming up, but he has an opt-out. So Bill Simmons on his podcast said that Horford might just opt out and leave because he's just sick of Boston and wants to go somewhere else. if Horford did opt out and leave and say, fuck this, Kyrie's gone.
I'm curious about what his intel is on that. I haven't seen any indicators of that.
Let's say it happened. Let's say that Horford's like, I don't want to play here anymore. I want to go join the Knicks with Kyrie and Durant or whatever. That puts Boston in an interesting position because then they would have max cap room. So then you're looking at a team that has Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and max cap room to add another guy. Maybe they become a player in some of these other free agents. Like, there's a potential there that even if Kyrie leaves...
Chris Middleton...
Sure, Chris
for
Middleton,
Bradley Beal.
maybe Kemba Walker, something like that. Like they could potentially go
Kemba,
after
John Wall.
Right. There's a huge free
you
agent
want
class.
to pay John Wall $40 million?
No, but I think the point is that like if
I've always really liked them.
Even if the Celtics fall on their face in the playoffs this season, and even if Kyrie leaves, Ainge is going to have a lot of options. He has all those picks. But if Horford leaves as well, they have cap space. It'll be interesting.
He's a mastermind. He's got tons of weapons. It's going to be fun as hell.
I wanted to ask you though, because before we end this though, so you guys are obviously going to have cap space. Who are your top 5 desired free agents? Like, who do you want to target? You've obviously mentioned Kyrie already, but who else do you want the Lakers to go after?
I'd rather solve 2 guards. If you can trade for Davis, then you do that. If you can get Bradley Beal traded, or if you can sign Chris Middleton.
Interesting.
That's my 1 and 2.
Why not
2 guard.
Why not Klay Thompson or something?
You're never going to get Klay Thompson.
You don't think so?
The Warriors aren't going to lowball him, and when Kevin Durant leaves, they're going to be more inclined to throw him as the kitchen sink.
Part of me just is hoping for the scenario where Durant actually does leave, and the Warriors just completely fall on their face. Klay Thompson leaves. I mean, I hope that actually happens, but you don't think Klay would ever leave?
Not if KD leaves, Klay stays.
Okay. What about Kemba Walker? He's one of those guys that I've heard people say that if you added Kemba Walker alongside LeBron, it would be similar to the LeBron and Kyrie dynamic. What do you think about that?
Who plays the 2 guard? Always a question.
The 2 guard, yeah. So
Lonzo going to switch to be a 2 guard? Is Kemba going to switch to be a 2 guard? And does that really better either of them or their game? And the answer I don't think is yes.
You're obviously it's going to come down. It's going to come down heavily to what happens with Anthony Davis, right? So if you guys don't get on Anthony Davis, you're probably pretty comfortable with Lonzo Ball being your long-term point guard, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, unless he breaks his fucking legs, like that guy's the 1 guard of the future.
How about this?
Especially
Kevin Durant.
I think I could be convinced to make an exception for Kevin Durant.
I just made my pipe dream. I made my pipe dream take on why Durant could potentially come to Boston, but I honestly think that the Lakers are not a total. They're not totally a long shot either, because I think that if the Warriors win this year, which I expect them to win, that means that KD will have his 3rd championship. It means that everyone else on that team has their 4th. So you're looking at Steph, Klay, and Draymond having their 4th championship. At that point. Look, if LeBron calls up Durant and says, hey, I've got 3, you've got 3, let's sign on for 2 years and get to 5. It's not that outlandish. I could see that happening, although everyone is kind of convinced that Durant is just definitely going to go to New York.
I think it's most likely he goes to NYC, but of course it would be great if he was here. I still think 2 guard is the main bug I have right now. And if you can flip Kuzma for Bradley Beal, I think that's probably the play.
Okay.
Otherwise, sign Chris Middleton.
What about Kawhi?
He's going to be a Clipper.
He's going to be a Clipper, yeah?
Quiet, doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
Has no personality at all. Not even beloved in his hometown. Oh yeah, he's going to the Clippers. It's like my ex-partner and her new boyfriend, who coincidentally is the guy she dated before she and I were together. And I hate to be the guy who bitches about his ex on a basketball podcast, but you know what? No, I didn't let that didn't get my blood going at all when it happened. I was like, you know what? Yeah, you guys have fun with that.
So
enjoy the sweet mediocrity.
All right, before we end this, tell me quickly who's your all-time least favorite Celtic of all time.
Paul Pierce. Paul Wheelchair Pierce.
Oh, man.
Kevin McHale is second. Kevin Clothesline McHale is second.
All right.
Yeah.
Do you have a least favorite Laker of all time?
Smush Parker, obviously.
Smush Parker. Wow, poor Smush.
Smush Parker, yeah. Oh, no question. He's everyone's least favorite Laker.
You know what? I'm going to get a lot of heat for this. Any of the Laker fans who are listening to this are going to probably brigade me with downvotes, but I still hate Kobe Bryant. I know that there's like everyone in the world now loves Kobe Bryant. There was a post on Reddit the other day that said that if Kobe was in the league right now, he would be the best player in the league. I totally disagree with that. I still think that guy was great, but he got carried to 3 championships by Shaq. Like,
wow, that's a take. Don't burn yourself.
All right, here's what I want to ask you. So, what do you consider Kobe's peak season? Because I've heard a lot of people say it's that season where he averaged 35 points. Do you agree with that?
Several. I could give you 4 or 5. Which season did he average 35 points? Is that the season he scored 81, or is that the season that he single-handedly took the entire team to the playoffs while also carrying out his Achilles? The owner died, and we made several bad free agency.
He scored. He averaged. Let me check it right now. So he averaged 35.4 points.
Died, and he tore his Achilles, and still will us to the playoffs.
He did make it to the playoffs. You guys lost in the first round, but you won 45 games with Kobe averaging 35 points. I think so. It seems most people think that's his peak season. So here's my question for you. Obviously, you're a Kobe Bryant fan, but did you realize that right now, at this very moment, James Harden?
Oh God!
James Harden's this season, he's averaging more points, more steals, more assists, more rebounds. He's shooting higher percentages from 3-point land, higher percentage from free throw. I mean, James Harden, with less minutes this season, is putting up a better stat line than Kobe Bryant did that season. What's your take on that?
There's a couple of logical flaws here that we'll have to address at a later point, because Harden's game is kind of a head scratcher.
He's carrying the Rockets right now to the playoffs. They have, I think they're in a 3rd seed right now.
I think Chris Paul might take issue with that.
But statistically, if you look at them, James Harden is actually better than that season of Kobe. And I don't consider James Harden the best player in this league right now. I would say that James Harden might not even be in the top 3. So the idea that Kobe Bryant...
Yeah, I don't think he's top 3 either.
Kobe Bryant in his peak, being the best player in this league, seems silly to me.
Harden's game is very sketchy. He travels all the time. He does things all the time that would not have been okay 10 years ago, let alone 30 years ago.
There's valid arguments about the way the game is played, too. I mean, I admit that.
He's never played defense in his... Oh, yeah.
Yep.
He's just taking advantage of the rules as they are.
Yep.
I can't fault him for that. Oh, no, wait. I totally can. With Harden, also, I mean, the man's never played defense.
Sure.
Yeah, he's going to have these stats, but he's not going to, be first-team all-defense like Kobe was for a bajillion times. That just on the defense alone, you still have to take Kobe over Harden for the 2 guard. Harden's probably a better 3-point shooter, and he's got a better pull-up.
Right.
But Kobe's operating in the mid-range, just footwork.
When I say I hate Kobe Bryant, I mean that as out of respect. It's not that I think that he was a bad player, but I don't necessarily agree.
I hate Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen out of respect. I hate Paul Pierce out of a wheelchair.
All right, man. Well, thank you again for coming on.
Anytime, bro.
I appreciate it. Was there anything else? I mean,
anytime.
Anything else you wanted that I didn't cover on this that you just want to get off your chest, or?
Twitter and Instagram are yes, Trask.
What do you think's going to happen in this game? So they just said that LeBron's going to have a minute restriction, but it's kind of funny because they said he's going to be limited to 32 minutes.
We'll lose by 20.
They said it's funny because they said he's going to be limited to 32 minutes, but like Jayson Tatum averages 31 minutes, and he's about like 3 decades younger than LeBron. So I'm not too worried about his minute restriction.
All right, I gotta go.
All right, man. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, bye.
See ya. Bye. All right, so that was Yes Trask. As I said in the intro, this was recorded literally minutes before the news broke about Brandon Ingram. Trask messaged me right after we recorded this and shared the headline, and it's shitty news. So I know Lakers are our rivals, but I'm rooting for Ingram to make a full recovery as soon as possible. And I don't need to call Trask back to know that he's probably extremely distraught about that. The news sucks. So, I mean, if you ignore this Anthony Davis stuff, I think most Celtics and Lakers fans would agree that the idea of our young guys facing their young guys for the next 10 plus years just sounds like a lot of fun. So let's just hope that Ingram's situation isn't too serious and we see him back on the court really soon. All right, so thanks. Like and subscribe if you want to see me do more of these podcasts.